Okay, so I've been making bread the whole time. So back to this.
I know you want to be able to remember more, and the memories are in there. And, I just want to approach the
But
situation delicately because, you know, you've been
some of
through a
the other
lot.
memories are just vague. You know,
Yeah.
I can and I have been very careful too not to reach out further because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once,
During the
and
1980s?
yes,
Okay.
Vladimir Putin. I don't know even when he ascended to the
Who
presidency,
was
but I
just talking
remember the name.
about Bubba sucking dick and knowing about photos? It would make sense if he was there and he would. That means he would know that happened, so that he knows it's on camera.
Because it was so unusual. Now, at that point, he may have just been, one of the Russian oligarchs
Oh, I mean, Bubba was getting his dick sucked by Trump.
or whatever, but his name came up, and I remember just because it's an unusual name, Vladimir Putin, but I don't believe he was ever there. So that is like, I don't know, there are other names like that too.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about
I
Putin
remember
more.
Clinton's name being brought up, but I don't ever remember seeing it.
So Clinton was mentioned, but you never saw Clinton.
Not that I can recall. And that's another thing too. I may have had interactions with additional people, but during some of them, I was so drugged out of my mind, I don't really remember what happened.
Yeah. When you heard them talk about Putin, so it was at one of the parties of one of the farms, do you remember what they were saying about Putin?
Just that he was some sort of like foreigner that was very important. I didn't know any more. The name was just unusual, and
Well, think about it. When did what's his name? Putin go from KGB member leader to president? So around the fall of everything, and then when this was happening, like when he was a kid, it would kind of track of him being a new leader and stuff.
they mentioned his name. They kind of had fun saying his name. Vladimir. Does he like to go by Vlad or this or that? But the meeting with that person, I don't think ever materialized. I think it was just something that was discussed and never happened. Now, if he has other connections, and he very well may, that's possible. But I can just remember at those parties, there were people that had strange accents.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. That's all I could say. I couldn't point and say, well, this person was from Spain or this person was from Portugal. I have no idea. But what I do know for a fact is not every person at those parties was American.
Yeah.
Well, that makes
I
sense.
know that's not a lot, but I only remember what I
I have a
remember.
question with Trump. I mean, with Putin. Did you get the sense that the party attendees, that the clients were interested in Putin? There was something they wanted from Putin. They thought they could get money from Putin, influence from Putin. Did you have any sense of that?
The only sense that I had was that this was for the rich people, regardless of where they were from. So
Yeah.
at this point in my child brain, I knew that there were rich people, and those people got to do whatever they wanted, and then there were poor people like me, and those people, that was the dynamic. So, that's it. I never heard them say anything about blackmailing and stuff like that, but I can remember them showing me a video of me.
That would track though. They wouldn't talk about doing their actual, the big shabil, and have their lower icon fucking little poor guy actually called him that, but like that's what he would be. You getting the information from him.
Doing bad stuff, and then I can remember people telling me that if I ever talked about it, what I had done was illegal too. And a lot of that was just bullshit because I was just a kid and they were making me do this stuff.
Yeah.
But
talk about
you know,
malevolent hypocrisy, dude. They were just utterly grotesque. They were trafficking you, they were assaulting you, they were drugging you, and then they were trying to
they were trying to make me feel guilty about any of it happening.
You. Exactly. When you were in a situation because they were trafficking you.
The last encounter with Trump, the one where I injured him, was the one that I remember the most vividly. And this was the setup for that. I can remember my dad, before we went to the farm, this was when we lived in Enterprise, Alabama.
Yeah.
So it would have been about 81 to 82, somewhere in there, maybe as late as 83. But he said there may be somebody that you know there. And I can remember the look on his face, and it scared the shit out of me. But anyway, when I got to the farm, of course, I'm scared at the farm because I don't know what's going to happen. But the first person that comes up to me is a girl named Patricia. This is a girl that I had been trafficked with before. And she came running up to me and, said hello or whatever. She was about my same age, around 12 or 13. And I can remember my dad saying, well, why don't you guys go run off or whatever and have fun? And I can remember not knowing what to do in that instance because, these parties weren't for me. I wasn't. And then he said something to the effect of, no, it's not like that for you anymore. You're a man now. You can just go out and have fun. Well, we went to go have sex. So we went and found a room and started having sex. And while we were having sex, people burst into the room. It would have been 4, 5, 6 guys, big guys, adults. At least one of them had a gun. I think 2 or 3 of them had guns. But they came in, they assaulted her, they beat on her, and then they shot her while she was still in the bed. They didn't beat or assault me, but what they said was, if you don't do everything that the next person coming in here wants, we're going to shoot you just like we did her. And I can remember them
that's a fear
having
tool.
Like an argument because
Holy
they
shit.
shot her in the
That's
bed
like
and then they had to go find
fucked
another
up shit.
mattress. Well, the argument because they shot her in the bed and then they had to go find another mattress. Well, that's when Trump came in. So that's why I remember him so vividly. And it was at that point I had already decided they're probably just going to kill me anyway. I'm going to take him with me. And I tried, but I did not.
How?
That's disturbing. It's very disturbing.
How did you? So, obviously, Trump was extremely violent. Trump's
Yes.
a sadistic psychopath. When Trump assaulted you, so sexual assault and physical assault?
Yes. So
And
at one point, I kind of acquiesced to whatever sexual things that he wanted to do. But at some point, he wanted me to have sex with him. So he laid down on his stomach, and there was a wooden tent stake that was in the room, and I had been eyeballing it as a weapon. And what I did was put the condom on the...
He fucked him with a bat, or what the fuck he just said, a tent stick.
Wooden tent stake, put it inside of him, and I kicked it as hard as I could. And that's why he had to get life flighted out, because I ripped him open.
I'm sorry. Do you ever watch the movie The Equalizer?
No, I haven't seen it.
Denzel Washington, sort of like Justice when everyone involved in American law enforcement can't
what the fuck that is here?
get any justice. That would be a sort of situation, obviously. I laughed because there's poetic justice there. Sasha?
All of it's wrong.
That was what facilitated. Not only did I get really assaulted by Andy Biggs, I also got assaulted by like an entire party's worth of people. They took
after Trump was airlifted out.
Yeah, a whole nother party. So they took me to another party after that, and because I had done that to one of those rich people, they took me from like station to station, and they could do whatever they wanted. Most of them just beat on me. I can remember me standing there. I'd already gotten beaten up, I don't know, 5-6 times, and I can remember somebody urinated on me, and I said, "Thank you for not hurting me," and he just hauled off and punched me in the side of the head and knocked me out. I can remember leaving that party, and my dad was just kind of dragging me out of there. It was another instance, just like with Andy Biggs, where I got beaten to the point where, I was, the room was spinning, I was nauseous, probably throwing up, maybe some broken bones, badly.
And how many perpetrators did you say again? 20 to 40? 25 to 40 perpetrators?
People that were there, yes. I would say probably 8 or 10 that just beat the absolute hell out of me. And some of them probably sexually assaulted me, but I can't remember. I can remember getting hurt, just getting beaten up and,
Was that before you tried to defend yourself from Trump or after? Do you remember?
That was after. That was as a punishment, if you want to call it that. What happened at that party was part of the punishment, and then I can remember them saying that this is the last of it when I had to go see Andy Biggs, but Andy Biggs almost fucking killed me. So I remember him
Brad needed more time.
That this is the last of it when I had to go see Andy Biggs, but Andy Biggs almost fucking killed me. So I remember him to this day.
So when Andy Biggs almost killed you was after Trump as well?
Yes.
Okay.
After Andy Biggs was after Trump. The party that a whole bunch of people assaulted me was after that, and then the last one was Andy Biggs, and then I can remember my dad saying no more. I can remember him even kind of breaking down a little bit, like psychologically, because of just, I guess, the repeated watching me just get destroyed by people. You got to understand, it's not like boo-boos and Band-Aids. They were breaking ribs and
yeah, but you still allowed it.
I've got like a deformed rib cage to this day.
No, sounds like they were trying to torture you just to the point of death, to punish you and to send a message.
They tried over and over again to hint to me to get me to kill myself.
Yeah.
And I can remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to kill myself because that's what they want. So, I kind of survived some of that just out of spite, to be honest with you. There's really no other way to put it, but I wasn't going to. I can remember hating my mom so much that I just did not want to give her the satisfaction.
Yeah.
She, as bad as my dad was, Marilyn Riley was even more evil. Her thing was sexually torturing me. So, and she enjoyed sexually torturing Samantha when they went and got her.
And Samantha was the runaway that Riley,
yes, the runaway that
William
she lived in a brothel, basically, a house where they had 4 or 5 underage girls that they had scooped up from wherever they got them from, and they would use those girls at these parties. Well, at one time, they sent me to go be a part of that brothel. So that's when I made friends with Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and those are the only 3 that I can remember their names. But Sarah committed suicide, Samantha was tortured to death, and Patricia was the girl that got shot in the bed before Trump came in.
Did Patricia die?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and all 3 died.
Yes. Yes.
So Samantha was the runaway that was murdered by your adopted parents.
Yes.
Patricia committed suicide. Sarah committed
It
suicide.
sounds like this literally sounds like all the shit I've read about with the fucking like the cults and shit, and how like they have networks of people, and they're just in houses. If he's being legit, this sounds like the what's it called? Satanic is there. Panic was there to make made it into a hoax, but it wasn't. It's like satanic, repressed. It's a mental disorder. Because you're being in cults and shit, and they talk about this.
And Patricia was murdered in the bed before Trump came in, and then they threatened
hey, this is pretty great.
and said to
pretty
let
good
Trump
take.
do whatever Trump wanted to do to you, or they would shoot you in the head as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And I can remember them pointing the gun at me and saying, "We're going to kill you." And my dad protesting because he said, "If you shoot him, we're all going to go to jail." And he was really, I can remember him being distraught. Now he's a kind of a tough guy, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's what stood out to me was he was really scared because he knew that if they just shot me, that's not something he could explain to anybody. And he had gotten into so much trouble with trying to get rid of me already. But there's the Chevy van incident, there's the pool incident, and then there's the stairs incident, and all of those generated a police report. In addition to that, we went down to Panama City, Florida, to the beach, either Panama City or Destin, and they took me to a riptide area. I didn't know it was a riptide area. There were no other people on the beach. It was just us.
Drop them in
but
it so you get
within
pulled out.
like 100 yards, 150 yards, there's the regular beach where people were at. You know how they have the riptide zones. They don't want you out there, right, for obvious reasons. Well,
Be right back. Sorry, I had to pull the bread out. It's actually done now.
they took me to one of these zones and had me, say, "Hey, come out here and play in the water and this and that." And for the first few minutes, it was just the three of us playing in water, and I'm just a kid. Beach is awesome. So at any rate, they go back in. I'm out there playing. Eventually, that current gets me, and I don't know how to swim at this point in my life. So it pulls me out, 100 feet maybe, and I'm bouncing up and down off the sandbar, just screaming my head off. Well, somebody that was on the regular beach, not in the riptide area, heard the screaming and came running from like 150 yards away, and right by my parents who were standing there. And he goes out there and gets me, fishes me out. By the time he comes back, he's nearly exhausted. And I can remember him and my dad nearly fighting. And at this point, there are other people that are coming, and that scares the shit out of my dad. But there was another police report with that, and I know that police report followed us back up into Alabama because the sheriff came down there and talked to my dad in Alabama. So there was another investigation for sure. So
there's got to be a paper trail for a lot of this. I'm not trying to make, if this is true, it'd be fucked up to make him have to do all the work. But like, there's got to be someone, if he's willing to get interviews and shit, there's got to be someone sleuthy enough to go figure that all out and do all the reports for it.
All of those things had already happened, and my dad was terrified that if something happened to me, especially so close to all of these other things that all of these other investigations, he pretty much knew he was going to go to jail over it.
So there was at least the Chevy van incident, pool incident, stairs incident. There was police reports. How many police reports? About 3 or 4. And then
that are just involved in trying to get rid of me. And then there were, in addition to those 4, there were 2 investigations, one for the porn, and then when we lived in the duplex and they were torturing that girl to death, Samantha, our duplex neighbors there in Enterprise, Alabama, they called the police because they could hear, screams and beatings and stuff like that. And when they investigated, I can remember my dad saying, "Hey, talking about me is just, I had gotten in trouble and got a whipping or something." And they did an investigation. They collected blood samples and everything from the house, but the problem was they couldn't determine how long that blood had been there, I guess. And it wasn't a match to anybody in the house.
Sounds like a great way to like deny evidence.
For whatever reason, they just didn't have enough, and I don't think
it sounds like someone did something to something, so the evidence didn't like track.
Were allowed to talk to me. I think my dad would have had to give them permission for the investigators to interrogate me. So I don't recall ever giving testimony as a child. Not to the police in that instance or in the instance up in Tennessee.
Did you provide any testimony to the police in any of those 5 cases? Well, the one case with the military, with the child pornography,
It's really fucking weird how there's child pornography cases that keep getting crazy like this shit, and they just get away with it. Like, we don't even give death penalties to murderers anymore in a lot of states. But even in the ones they do, they don't try. No one knows states really putting them away, really. Like, Florida is considered like the capital of all this bullshit. Look where all this shit's happening. In Florida, you make, like... That's weird, bro. How far is it off in Palm Beach?
I can remember the sheriff talking to me at the beach in Panama City, and I don't remember what all was said, but I can remember my dad tried to get out of there, and the guy that went and fished me out, my dad's a pretty big guy, and he can fight, but the guy that went and got me was like he was a tank. So it wasn't something that he wanted to really get into a fight about over there. And people started coming in. So my parents, I can remember them trying to hug me and stuff. Oh my God, thank God. And I can remember the guy that fished me out that said, "There's no goddamn way." I heard that from 150 yards away, and you're standing there watching him, and you didn't hear it, And, they tried to play it off like, well, we just thought he was playing, swimming and stuff like that. And I can remember the sheriff asking, "Do you know how to swim?" And I said, "No, sir." And they were like, "Okay, this fucking sucks. There's no way that this is legitimate." And I can remember the sheriff in Alabama talking to my dad and saying, "There better not be anything that happens to him." And he said, "Because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you're going to go to jail. I don't care." He said, "I'll make sure of it."
I'm going to pause it right there. I'm going to clip this one right here for the third one. So I'll see.